All right, it's another fine day and another fine interview today. Today we get to interview Charles Kelly Kilgore. Owns a law firm both here in Lexington, Kentucky and over in California, pretty much helping lawyers in any trouble they to get into. And we'll hear from him today about his business, how he got into it, some of the challenges, and everything else that has happened to him. So, good morning, Charles. How are you?
Good morning. I am very well. How about yourself?
Doing fine, doing fine. So, just a little background for everybody. How did you end up kind of getting into lawyering and getting your own business started?
Well, I got into lawyering. It was something that I had always considered. I did a ride-along day when I was at Takes Creek High School with an attorney on a career day, and that seed was planted back then. Then I studied at the University of Kentucky, graduated, worked in the horse business, went to California, but always with this idea that I might go back to law school, and so then I did. I went to Pepperdine Law School, and this is what I tell people. If you're going to suffer in law school, Malibu is the place to do it. So I graduated. There was a recession on at the time, and I was a little bit further along in years than some of my fellow graduates, so I went ahead and hung out a shingle and started doing trial work. And that's pretty much what led me in this direction.
Fun, fun. So, how long have you actually owned your own firm now?
It's been 20 years.
20 years.
I graduated in 94 and graduated in 93, took a little bit of time, went to Russia to do a program there, and then I came back, passed the bar, hung out my shingle. I'd say January 1st, 1995 was opening day, so right at 20 years.
Oh, wonderful. Hitting that 20-year mark. Well, congratulations on your anniversary. So in those 20 years, I'm sure you've seen some ups and downs in your business. So what would you say has been the biggest challenge you've come across in those last 20 years?
The biggest challenge that I've come across is basically representing people that have money. I got my start in criminal defense, and I guess it's axiomatic that criminals don't have money. That's why they're criminals. So whereas I gained a lot of experience, and I really enjoyed it, making a difference in people's lives, people that are not guilty or people that have been overcharged or perhaps in drug cases where rehabilitation was a much better idea than incarceration. Those have been really rewarding, and I still enjoy those types of cases. But after 70 or 75 jury trials, I really wanted to take my experience and really, quite honestly, make the kind of money that I believe that I should be making. And that's what led me into the 11th Hour Trial Lawyers Group.
Ah, so your big challenge then was just paying your bills like a lot of business owners, and the model you had chosen wasn't quite what you were hoping for, huh?
Yeah, that's really exactly correct. I knew that I wanted trial experience. I knew that criminal defense was the fastest way to get it. But just by way of example, in Los Angeles County, because there are so many cases and the docket is so crowded, we would often get sent from a criminal courthouse to a civil courthouse because those trials had priority because of speedy trial rights. So the civil trial, we would tell the clerk what was going on. The judge would nod to us and say, it's going to be a few moments. I've got these hearings in front of you. And the prosecutor and I would sit there and watch these civil attorneys, and just quite frankly, they were nowhere near as good as the prosecutor and they were probably making 5 times the money we were making doing the types of cases that they were doing. So after a certain period of time, I thought, well, I'll throw my hat in that ring. And about that time, a fellow that I went to law school with named Ron Regwan started hiring me to do his trials. So it was a good segue. I went on board for him. I've tried several of these cases now. I've yet to lose one. So the opportunity is there, the experience is there, and I just want to grow that aspect of my business.
Oh, wonderful. So while you were struggling through some of those financial hardships, really, what was going through your head? What made you get up every day to keep making that fight while the money was tighter?
Oh, well, to stay one step ahead of the creditors, make sure that my children had braces and clothes, and my wife was outfitted the way that she should be. really, there still is that enjoyment in the criminal defense portion where I can go and represent people, honor and protect the Constitution. I believe in those. That's not just trite. This is our country. I believe in it strongly. That helped me get up every morning and just deciding that going in this direction, I needed to get out of bed and chase that as well.
Nice, nice. I know I've talked to a lot of business owners, myself included. Every business out there, when they're starting out, is going to have some sort of financial difficulty and wonder, and having that real sense of why you're getting out of bed every day is crucial. And I've started a lot of clients on really getting that nailed down, because once they know why they're doing it, it makes the world come together for them. Such a great piece of advice. So, as you've grown your firm and your practice here, what would you say has been the #1 strategy you've used to help you become more successful each day?
Initially, it's just been word of mouth, because lawyers talk to other lawyers. One thing that I had to do, that I'm still in the process of doing, and hopefully you might be able to give me a hand with, is I've changed my entire marketing focus. I've gone from focusing on criminal defendants and people charged with crimes, a relatively unsophisticated audience, to now marketing myself to other lawyers, an extremely sophisticated audience. One of the problems that I run into is basically teaching, telling, or sharing with a lawyer that you need help in doing your trial. It's probably no exaggeration to say that attorneys are a very egotistical bunch, that we all have a healthy confidence level. So going to somebody and say, hey, look, let me help you, oftentimes that's kind of greeted with that, no, really, I got all this on my own. But just like you wouldn't go to a foot doctor for a heart problem, you really don't want to take a transactional or a corporate attorney, throw them into a trial, and expect great results. So that's where I can come in and help.
Oh, exactly. Getting that model nailed down on how to promote yourself and everything else is huge. Huge.
Exactly.
So you mentioned word of mouth. I've heard a lot of people say word of mouth. So in your business, what does that word of mouth marketing actually look like?
Well, one, if an attorney is looking for somebody to help them with a trial and they ask a fellow attorney, then obviously they have confidence in whatever that person's going to tell them. And if they say Charles Kelly Kilgore is the guy to go to, I've seen him in action, I've seen him in court, I know his comfort level, I know how he can talk to juries, then that's pretty much, I'm pretty much sold right there. All they have to do is pick up the phone and contact me. It's people that don't know me or that haven't heard of me or haven't seen me in action that I really need to sell. That and selling them on the whole idea in the first place. That, yep, you may be an attorney, you may have passed the bar, you may have some experience under your belt, but you haven't tried a case, and so therefore you could use me to help you.
Ah, okay. So it started off with just pretty much you just performing your work and going from there, people saying, hey, he's good, here's a guy you can call that can help you out, and that's how your word of mouth kind of went going, or mouth, yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's actually how the whole thing got started. I was representing a friend of ours that we had gone to law school with. He was also a criminal defense attorney. He's pretty irascible and strong-minded, and he got into a conflict with a bailiff in a courtroom and ended up being charged with a crime. I happened to witness the whole thing, and so I came on board and represented him at trial. Because of the notoriety involved, we were on CNN's Burden of Proof. We were all over the television and all over the media. Jeffrey Feiger, who had represented Kevorkian up in Michigan, got on board and made some comments and things like that. And this friend of mine that I mentioned earlier, Ron Regwan, came to see the trial. And I guess he was mesmerized by my performance. So he's the one who came to me and started asking me to do his trials, and that really was the seed that was germinated that got me down this path.
Oh, wow. You're the second person I've interviewed who can trace kind of where their business really took off to about one individual who came and saw you, and everything just kind of ballooned from there. In fact, it was an interview I did yesterday with a couple of folks who run a radio show out of Louisville. I mean, it's really interesting to me is just that networking and forming it. all of a sudden, boom, something just happens and it breaks free. One of my first interviews I did was a fellow who said the same thing. It was just, I just kept plugging away, meeting people, handing out cards, meeting people, shaking hands, and all of a sudden, boom, I just met that one person who fell in love with me, and it just opened up a world of possibilities from that. It's really interesting how people, and those connections we make and that networking proves so valuable, and we never know where it's going to come from or when. Oh, that's fascinating to me.
That's true. And this friend of mine, Dan Hustwit, that I had gone to law school with, if he didn't have the backbone that he had and the courage that he had and the temper that he has, then that altercation probably would not have occurred with that sheriff in that courtroom. But when that sheriff looked at him and said, "Are you challenging me to a fight?" and Dan said, "You take off that gun and that badge and we'll step outside and settle it like men," hey, I guess that was the birth of the 11th Hour Trial Lawyers firm.
I almost would have loved to see that. I remember seeing the video of the judge recently that ended up beating down who was another attorney, I think, or somebody in there. It happened, a couple, 3-4 months ago. It cracks me up. That's what we need.
Actually, I think it was in Scott County. I think it was right here in Kentucky.
It was.
And the guy just took a shot at his public defender and just let him have it.
I mean, we need more fights in the court system, I think. That'd help everybody out. If
it was more entertaining like television, we'd probably keep the jurors awake as well.
Probably would. So, if you had to boil down the last 20 years of your experience in running your business, growing your business down into maybe one or two action items or thoughts that you want to leave with the audience today, what would those one or two ideas be?
Probably personal satisfaction and the meaningfulness that I get out of my job. I don't work in a corporate tower. I don't put in 80 to 100-hour work weeks unless I'm in trial. And then it's of my own choosing. I'm not punching a time clock. If I want to stop in the middle of the day and have lunch with my wife or go to one of my children's performances, I can do that. Really, 6 months into hanging out my own shingle, if somebody had come to me and offered me an awful lot of money to go to work in a law firm, it might have been tempting, but I doubt if I would have done it. Charting my own course, being my own boss, choosing my own clients, and choosing which fights to fight has really been well worth it. And I recommend that to anyone that chooses law.
Oh, wonderful. Great piece of advice there. Personal fulfillment. What was the other one you said?
Well, personal fulfillment and just job satisfaction, that you're actually doing what it is. And I say this too because I still mentor students at Pepperdine, and I will go and speak at their orientation or at some of their functions along the way. And I'll always start out with some trivia questions like, who was the lawyer that prosecuted Phil Spector? Who's the lawyer that prosecuted Mel Gibson? Who's the lawyer that did this, this, and this? And they're all Pepperdine graduates. So you can get on television and you can make a great deal of difference and you can chart your own course.
Wonderful. That's just great stuff for anyone looking to go into business, be it being a lawyer or anything else they're looking at, is just that freedom to set that business up to support the life you want. And I know the trick is for a lot of folks is once they get that business rolling, they end up supporting their business instead of having the business support them. So it can be hairy sometimes, but great advice, Charles. Or do you go by Kelly? Which one's?
Charles professionally and Kelly to my friends. Either one.
All right. Well, Charles, thank you so much for interviewing today. I know that's going to help out a lot of people, and appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly, and I'm seeing you on Tuesday.
Yep. Look forward to it. Bye.
Thank you.